And go. Take it away, Charmy.
Oh, we're starting. Hey everybody. Maybe we'll do actually like a little we can just introduce ourselves for folks too. Hi everyone. Welcome to the Artist Legal Cafe. It's 3 o'clock. I don't know if or we're not starting at 3:05. We're not going to give some people moments to come in. We're just letting them in. Okay, great. Um, so we're just moving all ahead because we are limited on time and we want to get everybody the information that they need and the legal advice that they need. My name is Sharmi. I'm the executive director at Vital Arts. I use they, them pronouns. Um, I am here. Yes, there is a training today, and it's going to start very shortly after this intro. And artist and so excited for you all to be here. I'm gonna just talk a little bit about the Legal Cafe and our Nano training. So the Legal Cafe is our radical initiative to equip. Should we go to the next slide?
Mhm.
Can I do that? Oh no. Okay. It started by this has been a really exciting initiative from my org, Vital Arts, Sustainable Economies Law Center, which is represented by Hope Williams here, and Movement Law, represented by Hope Mohr here. And really, this is a project that we put together. To give y'all the resources that you need that are so expensive and so inaccessible. We're really trying to equip individual artists, artist collectives, and arts organizations. Um, not only to survive the struggles of the current landscape, but also thrive. It's once a month for the next 2 years. Every single cafe that we will have a nano training that will cover a different topic. Today, we're going to be talking about mutual aid. Next month, we will be dealing with housing and space and more and more and more. If you have a topic that you want this legal cafe to talk about, please email us and let us know, and we're happy uh, to take it into consideration and try and make it happen. I am going to pass it on to Hope Mohr for our land acknowledgement. Was that enough? Sorry, this is our first online one. I'm adjusting.
Great, Charmy. You did
For
great.
being here.
Go ahead, Hope Mohr.
It's great, Charmy. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Hope Mohr, she, her, artist and attorney. The Artist Legal Cafe is based in the Bay Area, and we want to acknowledge that we exist on land that was stolen from its indigenous occupants and forcibly colonized for the purpose of resource control and financial profit. In this process, the land and people that belong to it were displaced, subjected to cruel and inhumane treatment, including forced migration, enslavement, and the stripping of their rights and destruction of their cultural identity. We recognize that this imperialist and colonial destruction is ongoing, and we urge you to support Indigenous organizations and individuals who are working to repair their legacies and lineages. Chochenyo, Ohlone, Karkin, Ohlone, Bay Miwok, Plains Miwok, Delta Yokut, and Naipion Patwin are among some of the tribes who historically occupied this land long before the first ever Spanish settlers arrived. And Michael, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. We also encourage you to reach out to some of these indigenous organizations to support them further, and we'll drop those resources in the chat as well. So now I'm going to turn it to Hope Williams, who's going to intro our speaker and say some other things. Thanks all.
Thanks. All right. Thank you, everyone. Super happy to have you all here. My name is Hope Williams. My pronouns are she, her. I help run the legal cafes for the Sustainable Economies Law Center. I'm also the director of legislative advocacy. So if you want to talk policy, please email me immediately. And the format is just going to be super simple. Michael here will present. Hopefully we'll get this done by 3:30. If you have RSVP'd for a legal consultation, please stay online after this presentation, and we will put you into breakout rooms with different attorneys and try and get everyone together as soon as we can. Sometimes we run behind, and that's okay. Thank you for your patience and your forgiveness. We love you. I'm going to spotlight Michael and kick it off to him. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Everybody, Mike Haber, he, him. Nice to see all of you. I'm excited to be here to talk about mutual aid in the arts. I am a law professor at Brooklyn Law School in New York, so not local to California, where I guess many of you are. And I've spent my career as a lawyer doing work with social movement organizations, nonprofits, mutual aid groups, collectives, cooperatives, uh, that sort of thing. Um, and long before uh, going to law school, was someone who was, you know, always involved in mutual aid projects as a teenager and as a college student and things like that. And it's sort of been a part of my life for uh, almost as long as I can remember. So it's nice to have those two things come together uh, in this setting and to speak with you all about it. So I'm going to start with a brief overview of mutual aid. Some of this will be um, basic for some of you, and maybe, but I'm hoping that it can be useful information, even for those of you who have lots of familiarity with mutual aid. So I'm going to kind of define it in three different ways. I think about it through these three different lenses. So first, thinking about how the term mutual aid was popularized. Whoops, I'm speeding through. Um, so in the late 19th century Europe, there were these social Darwinists who developed a sort of defense of industrial capitalism that I think pejoratively was later called social Darwinism, but the idea of survival of the fittest being sort of a natural thing, that the brutality of the British factory and the brutality of colonialism was natural and normal, and the way the world works, and it's just sort of the human version of that. And this dude named Peter Kropotkin um, wrote a book using a term that had been around for a little bit, but really theorizing the idea of mutual aid, looking at everything from how bugs and birds collaborate to how cooperatives worked in antiquity, through industrial unions in what was modernity for him, and arguing that although there's lots of competition in nature, that there's also just as often collectivity and cooperation. And he called that mutual aid, or he used the term mutual aid that existed to define that stuff. A second way of thinking about mutual aid is thinking about it as part of a long history of people doing this kind of stuff, from um, antiquity, from indigenous groups through medieval craft guilds, early modern friendly societies, through enslaved people in the US having robust mutual aid practices, um, through the early 20th century labor movement. All that stuff kind of came together and really influenced people working in radical politics, I think especially in the 60s and 70s, groups like the Black Panther Party, who framed their mutual aid work as survival programs pending revolution. That tradition of mutual aid would kind of move forward through radical movements in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, and it was a part of the anti-globalization movement, which I caught the tail end of, the Occupy movement that I was a part of, the Black Lives Matter movement, all of them taking some of the themes of this past work from the Panthers and others, and bringing it into modernity using tools like the internet that didn't exist decades ago. So I describe mutual aid as comprised of three elements. It works to meet basic needs while simultaneously trying to build a shared political understanding about why people's needs aren't being met. It mobilizes people, helping to build and grow movements. And it is a collective and participatory activity, not something that's like a nonprofit where a person or group might be leading it in order to serve others. So that's my brief summary of what mutual aid is all about. Um, I want to give this important disclaimer because I'm going to pivot to my lawyer hat now, and we're going to be talking about like money and incorporation and things like that. Um, there's a lot of legal issues here to sort out, and those are important in my lawyer hat, but I don't want you to leave this with the impression that that's like what mutual aid is all about. I feel strongly that the takeaway here shouldn't be that mutual aid is just about distributing money, that it's, just about dropping off a bag of groceries or sending a Venmo, but that really is sort of a political practice, and it's something that is more than just simply sharing resources, although it is that too. Okay, so let's turn to the law. I have two big legal questions I'm going to talk about that I think a lot of groups that are thinking about starting mutual aid practices or that have mutual aid practices that are looking at legal questions that they have. The first one is something like this. Groups that provide help to the communities, they often organize themselves as nonprofits. They do that to protect their members from liability, to make banking and taxes easier, to possibly attract grants and donations. But on the other hand, there is, conversations about the nonprofit industrial complex, which is a complicated thing in itself to try to explain, and a general idea of like, if we want to remain collective and participatory, is there a problem with becoming like a nonprofit officially that exists to help others? Is it going to sort of, if we formalize, is it going to have this challenge of turning ourselves into sort of like part of the nonprofit industrial complex? My take on this is that the answer is really not that bad. So the good news is there are 20 different ways to solve this problem. The bad news is there's 20 different ways to solve this problem. So I have a chart here that I'm not going to spend 45 minutes talking through in detail, but I think there's big picture four different types of approaches, and within them there's a bunch of different sub approaches. One is to go the route to becoming a conventional 501c3. It's not that it's not that hard to do if a concern is like, how do I get there? And while it is true that some of the default rules may not be what you want to do, there is a lot of flexibility within the rules that you can kind of make the structure of your organization your own without having to look too much like this um, sort of conventional big nonprofit that you might be familiar with that has a big board of outsiders and feels very hierarchical and maybe not that friendly to you. The second option is to remain unincorporated. That's perfectly fine. There is some risk of liability if somebody got hurt or there's some issue like that. There is the risk of some taxes or something like that coming to impact one person if you're not careful. But it's still very workable. And there's lots of different things that you can do to make it work and to reduce your risk of liability. The third approach would be to look at non-501c3 options. That can work for groups that are pretty sophisticated and have a reason to do that, especially for groups that might want to be involved in legislative advocacy or politics, which in the world of tax-exempt law means like electoral politics, endorsing candidates or endorsing political parties. And then lastly, you could become a nonprofit that doesn't file for tax exemption, or you could become an LLC or a cooperative. There's a bunch of different approaches to doing this. I think that that's an approach that works for a lot of groups because you get the advantage of, at least a lot of the advantages of not having to worry that much about personal liability, meaning that if somebody sued a person who's part of the group, you might be protected by the corporate umbrella there. You would not have the advantage of tax exemption, but that might not be that big of a deal for people who are giving you food or giving you $50 or something. It's more of a question for if you would be applying for grants or things like that. That would become harder to get if you were a nonprofit that didn't have 501c3 status, or if you wanted to be an LLC or a cooperative or something else. Okay, that's the first big legal question. I see that there's people in the chat. I'm going to read the chat after I do this, and I'm happy to answer questions at the end here. Second big legal question. Hey, we just want to collect money from our neighbors and friends and some online people, probably using something like Venmo, Cash App, whatever. Do we need to care about all that stuff? Here, the answer is not that great. Not that great. Good news is the law is somewhat clear and becoming clearer. The bad news is the law is not really designed for mutual aid groups, and that makes it harder to navigate. Okay, here's the slide with the most of the law on it. So apologies for this. Don't leave yet. So generally speaking, there's about a lot of generalities here because there's a lot of exceptions here. But in general, gifts, which are defined in tax law as, payments of money given with detached and disinterested generosity, not, the opposite of that, which is like money paid for goods or services. Those shouldn't be counted as taxable income. That's most of what mutual aid looks like typically. Generally speaking, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, all those kinds of things are not that good at identifying what's a gift and what's not a gift. There's not like a person there saying, oh, this payment from this person to that person, I wonder if that's a gift or if that's a thing. They, generally speaking, take the default approach of saying it's a payment, it's probably the world of commerce and not the world of a gift. Also, generally speaking, if they think that payments are income to an individual or an entity connected to the payment, they will report that to the IRS, and the IRS will expect taxes to be paid based on that income. However, Venmo and some other apps do allow donors to indicate if a payment is a gift by saying that it's a payment for friends and family, or using some similar language on different websites. I'm not an expert in every single platform. Secondly, cash, checks, money orders, and Zelle, for reasons that have to do with complicated banking law, are not reported to the IRS in the same way. The same tax laws apply, but there's no third party out there that's sending the information to the IRS. So if you get it and it really is commerce, you should be telling the IRS. But if you get it and it really is a gift, nobody's telling the IRS anything different. Thirdly, the tax form that you could get, and I think some people in the world of mutual aid are familiar with this idea, is called the 1099-K form. The rules around 1099-K forms have changed literally 3 or 4 times in the last 5 years. This is an incredible sort of political hot potato, having nothing to do with mutual aid and everything to do with like the Democrats trying to raise revenue from, having some, I guess, some rules where they capture as much tax money as they can in a way they think is fair. And the Republicans, by and large, sort of getting successfully lobbied, for better or for worse, by Venmo, Cash App, eBay, Lyft, Uber, Airbnb, places where there's a lot of commerce happening and people don't want to pay taxes on it. So I'm not going to go through this in detail, but here's how the 1099-K form standards have changed. They've changed a bunch of different times. Um, the current, the 2024 tax year, so this would be um, if you, this would be taxes that for most people would be paid April 15th of 2025. But if you had mutual aid last year and you're dealing with delayed payments in your taxes, um, the threshold for getting a 1099-K form was $5,000. So if you got more than $5,000 through any one platform, you should be getting a 1099-K form. If you got more than that amount of money and there's no 1099-K form to be seen, that's actually the time when you should worry, because maybe it was sent to the IRS and like it didn't get to you for some reason. You got the wrong address or it went to the wrong person or something like that. For the current tax year, meaning for most people, taxes that would be due on April 2026, thanks to the big beautiful bill, we are now back at $20,000 and more than 200 transactions from any one platform. So a 1099-K would be sent to the IRS and to you at the 200th transaction if it is $20,000 or more. So if you have 199 transactions and it's $1 million, no 1099-K form. If it's 7,000 transaction, but only $19,000, also no 1099-K form. It has to meet both of those things. Then the 1099-K form would be issued. Might some platforms issue 1099-Ks to everybody? Unclear. It's really up to the platform. And again, the rule is that if you're getting payments for goods or services, you should be paying taxes on it. If you're getting payments that are gifts made with this detached and disinterested generosity, you shouldn't be paying taxes on it. But anybody can imagine who uses these different platforms, it's going to be hard to figure out using, if you get hundreds of payments through Venmo, which one was a gift and which one was a reimbursement and which one was a payment for something that was actually goods and services. So it's going to be messy. Here are the takeaways. You owe federal taxes on your income, even if you don't get a 1099-K, if it was for goods and services, not a gift. You may only find out that payments weren't classified as a gift if you get the form. So that would be like information to you that you'd know, oh, somebody that gave me $10,000 that was really a gift, they didn't check off friends and family, and so now it's maybe taxable income. And the main takeaway here is, or maybe the most important takeaway here is, if you get a 1099-K form that says your mutual aid project got this money and it's taxable, and you think, no, most of this money or all of this money shouldn't be taxable. Most of this money or all of this money was made with detached and disinterested generosity. It was people who are trying to give back to their neighbors. The place to do that advocacy is with the platform. The IRS is not going to talk to you. So you need to like talk to Venmo, talk to Cash App, explain the situations with them, try to negotiate with them. The IRS is going to say, what do you want us to do about it? This is what Cash App is telling us you made in profit for your business. Too bad. And that's just going to be the IRS's take on it. So you're going to have to do that, have that conversation with the platform itself. Lastly, does creeping autocracy change things? Good question. So I think that my general answer to this is that, it's never not a good time to start mutual aid, but now seems like a particularly important time to be in touch with your community, be in touch with your people, and make sure that people are feeling safe. I think that there is no question that some communities are at heightened risk today, which deserves attention when we're planning. I think all of us are at heightened risk in different ways. And I think that the way that we try to address that is by planning carefully. So like listening to this and listening to other things that might give you some guidance on reducing risk. And by, building solidarity and taking taking this work seriously. Thirdly, my sense is that it is less risky to use an entity than one's personal information as much as possible. And something I'm not an expert on in any way, paying attention to information security, assessing risks, all that stuff is important. Talk to your friends who know about computers. Not me, but that stuff is also very important. And then lastly, it is, a time to solidify relationships with our allies, have a plan for all possible contingencies, and not a time to retreat from being a community at this current time. I have some mutual aid resources on this slide that I like, a bunch of books by friends that I recommend. The mutual aid disaster relief website is great, has a million resources, and is maintained well. I have a thing that's maybe helpful for legal questions. Sustainable Economies Law Center has some materials that also might be helpful for mutual aid questions. And I was told to end at, I guess, 3:25 on the West Coast time, and I'm very close to doing that. So happy to answer questions. Oh.
Thank you, Michael. That was incredible. There is a question in the chat, and I'm going to read it. So, if we are working with communities who receive SSI or SSDI food stamps, what are the best approaches to practice mutual aid to ensure they don't lose their benefits?
Yeah, great question. I'm trying to go back one slide for someone. Here we go. I assume this person is talking about if those people are receiving cash payments, like if the mutual aid group is giving those folks cash payments. I think that the realistic answer, although probably not the most legal answer, is give people cash, don't give people Venmo.
Thank you.
See my contact info.
Yeah, if you could.
I'm going the wrong direction. That's my
Is it
contact info.
possible to, if there is, like, if Venmo or Cash App are the only ways that is like accessible for this person to receive funds? What are the options?
So Zelle, I mean, is more, because it's more owned by banks, weirdly, is less regulated and is safer, or not less regulated. That's not the wrong reason. Because Zelle is like a bank-to-bank transfer and not a transfer through an intermediary. So like when you send money through Cash App or through Venmo, it looks the same as if, from the perspective of like banking law, as if you send money through, like, if you like go to a store and you pay and they have like one of those Stripe readers or one of those kinds of things. They're like, oh, the money goes from your credit card bank through that third party and then to the recipient's bank. Zelle is straight from one bank to another bank. So if cash isn't available but Zelle is, that is better. I mean, I think, yeah, so that's what I would say. I mean, I think that it is the case, or buying things and giving them things, right? I mean, it's if someone is in need of food and you buy them food, that does not show up as income on the books in any way.
Thank you, Michael. So I think we could kick it to the next. These slides will be made available and this recording will be posted. Vanessa, you're great. I'm going to stop. I'll stop recording in just a second. And I want to see if Sharmi wants to close us out with the final slides. I can also do it.
I would love if you did, actually.
Right. Yeah, we love these things. Okay, so Selk offers 3 legal cafes per month. This is a space where you get a free legal consultation from one of our volunteer attorneys. It's anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes long. You can attend as many as you'd like. And these artist cafes happen every single month. So if you want to stay up to date on when these are, we post all of these events on our website, theselk.org. And we look forward to seeing all of you. And thank you so much for joining us. And Michael, you're the best. I recognize some names on here as ones who are here for a legal consultation. So I'm going to stop recording. Y'all who